Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. I would like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. The world's eyes were, of course, on what had happened earlier today when a drone attack occurred on one of the Global Sumud Flotilla boats. No injuries, no deaths, thankfully, had occurred on the family boat. But of course, this has once again, as a discussion I had with Joe Bloem last week with regards to any attacks that could occur on these civilian ships. We've spoken to two amazing South Africans last week who are going to be taking part in this Global Sumud Flotilla. And I'm glad to be joined by another one, speaking to us via the telephone. It is none other than Zukiswa Wanner, who joins me on the line from Tunis in Tunisia. Zukiswa, good day. Absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Zukiswa, I think there's only one place to start, and that is, of course, what happened earlier today. Where were you when it happened? And, of course, just your initial reaction to it.
I was fast asleep. And, I only got to know about it when I woke up and I saw in the WhatsApp groups for the team a message from the Global Flotilla, essentially their release to us.
Yeah.
So I hadn't known about it prior.
Yeah. And just, obviously this had caused a lot of panic at the time, but, given the scale of the mission that's about to occur, this was probably a scary moment, wasn't it? I think not only for those on the vessel itself, but I guess for the 10 South Africans and the hundreds that are going to be conducting this.
I really can't say because I only saw the panics and the discussion after everybody had kind of calmed down, because that's when I woke up. And so the first thing I saw was, okay, this has happened. Nobody has been injured. And the moment that I knew nobody had been injured, I was like, phew. So then I could go back and look at everything and see the messages of panic. And of course, I then started talking to the South African contingent and other friends or people who have become friends and comrades who are part of this. And I asked them how they were feeling. And they were pretty much feeling the way I was feeling and still feeling. And so I made a statement, and if that's okay, I can share it with you.
Yeah, sure, please, no problem, by all means.
Yeah, so I made it very early as soon as I'd heard, but I say by now you have all heard of the drone attacks on one of our boats. Fortunately, no one was injured and we're all safe. Everyone here I've talked to sees this for what it is, a terrorist attack in Tunisian territorial waters to try and dissuade us from continuing on our mission. What these terrorists do not seem to realize is that our horror at the siege of Gaza that has gone on for years is more than any threats. Our love for humanity is stronger than their hate. We are determined now more than ever to break the siege. We ask all of you who stand with humanity to continue putting pressure on governments as they go to United Nations General Assembly to not only condemn the Zionist entity with the strongest words, but with deeds that include divesting from Israel and deregistering companies doing business with the Zionist entity. We ask you, supporting companies funding this genocide, it's up to all of us to ensure that we let Gaza live.
Zukiswa, I've seen the statement on your Facebook page also at the same time. And I think we all have to agree that what we're seeing now in Gaza City with regards to those high-rise buildings which are being purposefully bombed, brought down by the Israeli occupation forces, I guess it doesn't compare to, obviously, drone attack. And I mean, the drone attack has to be condoned in every way possible. But the fact that families have so little time to move, I think that's the stark reality of what the people of Gaza are going through. Am I right?
Absolutely. And seriously, at this point in time, I'm also saying, with my social media account, my Instagram, I'm saying keep your eyes on Gaza, because what we're seeing right now is people being killed. And so when we talk about this drone attack, which is terrible, which should be condemned, it really is like a distraction to the bigger thing that is happening to the people of Gaza.
Zukiswa, what we saw earlier on this morning, do you see it as a threat to this massive mission that hundreds of citizens across the globe are going to do? Because I had a conversation with Joe Bloom last week, and she had said that when you listen to the rhetoric of Itamar Ben-Gvir, who says we are going to detain anyone on these flotillas with the harshest of punishments. What is your take on that when we just hear the rhetoric from the Israeli government?
Well, for the longest time, the Zionist government has made it seem like people who Palestinians and everybody else are the terrorists. But now I think it's very clear. We have known, those of us who have supported Palestine for a very long time, have known who the terrorists was. Now I think the whole world knows who the terrorists are. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, with the General Assembly coming up, it is of utmost importance that governments come out in the strongest way. We've seen the Scottish government doing it, and because the failure of this, and this is very important, a lot of people think Gaza, full stop, Palestine, full stop. It is not. It's an offense. It's a destruction of our very way of living as a people, of our humanity. Because first is Gaza, next is going to be, Soweto. Yeah, we need to understand how these struggles are all interlinked.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we take a look at what's happening in Sudan. And of course, the countries that Israel are attacking at this very moment, that is, of course, Yemen and also Syria at the same time. Zukiswa, before we go to the break, how much has this united the citizens of the world who are going to be conducting this flotilla? Because I just seen ahead of the press conference earlier today where Dr. Francesca Albanese had attended, and you could just see the unity amongst the people, that probably what happened this morning has unified the people even more than it had done before.
Listen, it has made us all very much stronger, and we're looking at it and we're saying, listen, this is a drone. We see what is happening in Gaza. And as I mentioned, our horror at that the fact this is still continuing is much bigger than any threats they can give us. Our love for the people of Palestine, for humanity, is much bigger than their hate. And I always really do believe, and maybe it's because I'm hopeful and I'm a writer, that love always wins.
Zukiswa, after the break, we'll continue this conversation. Again, she's one of the 10 South Africans that will be part of the South African team of this Global Sumud Flotilla. Do stay tuned. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to News in Focus. I'm in conversation with Zukiswa Wanner, who's one of the 10 South Africans that will be part of the Global Sumud Flotilla. Zukiswa, again, thank you so much for joining us. And I know it's been a very busy time for you. Zukiswa, for the longest time that I can remember, you have been an activist for the Palestinian cause. But what you're about to conduct now, how have you prepared for it, not just mentally, physically, and also the fact that this is also dangerous at the same time, given, and we spoke about it in the first segment, the threats that have been made by the Israeli government. Talk to us about that.
Well, we Obviously, in order to sign up for it, I was mentally prepared. I knew that this is a peaceful trip to try and create a humanitarian corridor to end the siege on Gaza. And I had talked to my family about it. I chatted with my son and my husband. I told them this is what I'm doing, and they are all in full support. My cousins are also in full support. And part of the reason I think is because they really understand how the struggle is very much interlinked. You mentioned Sudan earlier, and if you recall, a year or so ago, Al Jazeera came out with a documentary called Gold Mafia, which was about gold that was going into being taken from Zimbabwe into United Arab Emirates. But some of the people involved were also in South Africa. And lest we forget, in South Africa, we had Stilfontein. And people continue dying, and everybody says, oh, the Zamazamas. But it is really just criminalizing the poor, because nobody ever tells us who are the big bosses who are actually getting that gold into United Arab Emirates. And it's the same gold that is being sought and being killed, where people are being killed in Sudan. And it's the same minerals that are leading to giving weapons and leading to the killings of our brothers and sisters in DR Congo. So we have to understand that this is very interlinked, and it affects us on a very basic level, even as South Africans. And of course, we do have South Africans who are involved and serving in the Israeli occupational forces. Occupying forces, as well as who are becoming settlers. So we also need to hold our country accountable.
Zukiswa, I want to touch on that because you bring something quite important. While South Africa, of course, took Israel to the ICJ, which of course needs to be commended, there is a other side to the coin of it. And of course, you're mentioning now, that documentary right there of Al Jazeera with regards to the gold mafia. But there's also the big sticking point, and that is the continuous trade of coal that is still occurring between South Africa and Israel. There's a huge contradiction there. As a South African sailing on this Global Sumud Flotilla, how important is it to raise that part of the awareness that even though there's this ICJ case, there's still a trade that is the low-hanging fruit?
It's actually very important. About a week or 2 weeks before about a week before I came here, I was part of the protest at the Department of Trade and Industry to ask with other people to ask that the South Africa stops trading coal with the genocidal state. We can't be speaking from both sides of the mouth and say that we realize that Israel is a genocidal state, yet our coal is the one that's lighting up the genocide. It can't be like that. So we need to find a way. It's very urgent that perhaps we divest and demand that companies like Glencore be deregistered in our country.
Zukiswa, you pinned, it was an interview that you did with Al Jazeera where you mentioned the word hope. When you see what's happening in Gaza right now, it's very difficult to give hope to the people. But I've had discussions with a journalist and somebody from an organization called Al Mizan, who's based in Deir al-Bala in the southern part of Gaza. And when I told them the South African delegation's coming, the world is coming to give you aid, they said, we are hopeful. We believe that this will be achieved. We believe the siege, the illegal Israeli siege that is happening will be broken. How does that hope not just inspire you, Zukiswa, to do this mission, but to break the siege which many other flotillas before have not succeeded?
I agree with that. There is a level of skepticism, obviously, where people are saying, well, the concept bombed in the way that we saw, and it didn't go through. The Madeline was destroyed. Well, before it could get to its destination. What I have hope for, and here we bring that word hope. What I have hope for is, firstly, this is the biggest of its kind. We have a lot more boats than in previous missions. There are a lot more people. In fact, do you understand that if today they would, they don't want to go anymore who've been approved, take their place? Because we have more people in Tunis wanting to go on this mission than they are, spaces on the boats. And that says something. It also says something that all over the world, I know humanity is watching, and they are with us. They're holding space for us, and they're speaking up for us. And everybody knows the ethno state, that's the Zionist state, is really just a terrorist state, and nobody with an ounce of humanity can claim that they don't see what's happening and how terrible it is. Nobody who is a sibling, a parent, a mother, a father can be watching and seeing all the killing, all the devastation, and still be able to say they support this entity unless there is something absolutely wrong with their humanity and their brain.
No, I couldn't agree with you more there, Zukiswa. Zukiswa, of course, you're part of the 10 South Africans. Last week I had the pleasure of speaking to Dr. Zahira Sumar. I also spoke to Dr. Fatima Hendricks. And the beauty about the South African team is that they're from all walks of life. They're from different ages. You've got Nurain Saluji, who's just a 22-year-old. And at the age of 22, the youth are engaging other things that is not activism. But here we have this girl that's saying, I want to take this leap. As a young lady, I want to take this opportunity to make a difference. And you've got, Dr. Sumar and Dr. Hendricks saying, I could just sit back, retire, be with my children, go ahead and just enjoy life. But no, we're making a difference. This is the South African inner person, isn't it? That we do not want to sit back and just allow this to occur. Talk to us about how it is to be part of this convoy, to be amongst your fellow compatriots.
I think it's been, it's been eye-opening because we're also like different professions and from different backgrounds, work-wise and in many ways as well, even with our upbringing. So it's been nice. It's like a family, and I think South Africans are absolutely beautiful to work with because all of a sudden everybody just comes and gathers, and it's a home. So we're at home, away from home with each other, and we know that we've got duty of care for each and every person. So Nurain is like our little sister or our daughter for all of us, So and other people are like older brothers, and so it's been and just knowing that you're not alone on this journey. There are other people, your compatriots, who feel as strongly as you do about this level of injustice, but equally who understand the way it ties to our own problems at home, to the unemployment, to the crime, to the proliferation of weapons and drugs and all that other stuff.
Zukiswa, when I've spoken to both Dr. Hendricks and Dr. Sumar, they've said, please do not call us saviors. This is a duty of a citizen of the world to assist somebody who is oppressed. This mission, the magnitude of its history, Zukiswa, whatever occurs, and of course we would hope and we would pray that this is a success so that you can get the necessary aid into Gaza. But whatever the outcome of this mission is, how historic will this be given the scale of this genocide that is occurring in Gaza?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
I was
didn't
just
hear
I
it
was just saying,
clearly. There was
Zukiswa.
just a door
No
opening.
problem. I was just saying, Zukiswa, the scale of this mission that you're about to conduct, the history that this will be made, no matter the outcome of it.
Well, obviously, the only favorable outcome that would want to happen is that the siege on Gaza is broken. But certainly, there is history. The idea, I think, that all the world's governments, I think they would be committing political suicide if they allowed their citizens to be held and killed or treated like terrorists by the Zionist government. So I think none of us are trying to be heroes. We're just hoping to do the right thing. We're hoping to break the siege. This is something that the world's government should have been doing. It shouldn't be done by civilians, but you and I know as civilians, we can't just sit back and not do anything. Maybe this is what we need to put the pressure on our governments to say, hey, listen, we're not allowing, governments, politicians have egos. We're not allowing these people to take the shine. Let me be the one in the front and do something. I keep thinking that if there were, 30, 40 presidents, like the Colombian president, this would have been like all over. We wouldn't even be here. But maybe this is the thing that can push them. But the real important story is that humanitarian aid must get to Gaza and allowed to live. Gaza must live. The real important story is that in addition to the humanitarian aid, which is the basic, which is on the ground floor, the next important thing is we need a peaceful and just Palestine. We need everybody who's been responsible for this,
Zukiswa, we have to end it there. We seem to be losing you there, but absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us, and all the best for your trip, and may it be a successful one to get that aid into Gaza. Thank you so much.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You have a good day also. That is Zukiswa Wanner, one of the 10 South Africans that will be part of the Global Sumud Flotilla. After the break, I speak with the South African Policing Union with regards to the killings of police officers, 66 over the last 2 years. We're also going to be touching on those 121 dockets that have been returned in terms of the political task team that is, of course, conducting in conjunction with this Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. I speak to Lasiba Tobokale after this break.